going to get a recording started. So welcome. And, it's not many years ago that I was sitting in the seat that you're sitting in. And I was attending my CMP Information Session. And so perhaps you're wondering the same thing. So I'd like to alleviate those concerns from you. We typically have three different types of people who attend this session. The first are folks who are interested in learning more about the CMP process as a whole. They're unfamiliar with it, and they want to figure out where they fit in. The second group of people are people who are about to fill out their CMP application. And the third group are people who are trying to prepare for their exam. So if you fit into one of those categories, absolutely in the right place with us today, anything. And if one topic doesn't suit you, yours will be coming up, I promise. In addition to that, I just want to share with you that when we're all done today, I'm going to send you an email with all of the links and dates and information that we're going to talk about today. So I don't want you to worry about having to rush to take down locations of various things that are available to you on the internet. You'll get all of that from me. So listen, very quick online class housekeeping. We'll talk about the history of the CMP certification and its benefits. And then we'll get into the heart of the matter, the CMP process, and how to prepare for the exam. All with an idea, by the end of the hour, you'll have a personalized CMP action plan for yourself. And throughout, we'll have discussion and questions. So let's jump right in, and let's do a little online class housekeeping. So I do like to keep the session very interactive. So I'm going to ask you to use the chat window. And actually, it probably isn't to your left. There are three dots. We call that an ellipse. If you click on them and just say something like, "Hey, Ellen, I can hear you," or "Nice to meet you," or whatever it is that you want to say. Just hearing me, otherwise it feels like I'm talking to no one. And I'd much rather be talking to you. So have you found your chat window? Wondering if you're hearing me, because nobody has typed into it. Ah, excellent. Thanks, Jacqueline. I'm glad that you're here. How about someone else? Anybody else want to chime in? Okay, we have shy people today. That's okay. I'm going to draw you out. And continue speaking. So don't feel you're interrupting. Just go ahead and ask away. And I'm getting, okay. So let's move on. So we're going to do some quick introductions just so I have an idea about who you are, and hopefully you'll feel comfortable now in telling me if you're either a supplier or a planner, the kind of company that you work for, and most importantly, why you're interested in earning your CMP. A long process, right? And so if you can keep your why strong in your mind, you'll have a better way of coping with those days when it gets a little rough, right? So while you're typing into the chat window the answers to those three questions, I am going to do a quick introduction of myself. My name is Ellen Mayara. I do have my CMP. I earned it in 2005. I'm an independent planner, so I own my own company in Tampa, Florida, and I have worked in a whole variety of situations, both as a planner and as a supplier. So I kind of come attending my CMP information session. I felt like my career needed a jump start. I wasn't really even sure what I needed to do. I wasn't convinced the CMP was the thing that would make a difference, but I really felt like my career had plateaued. And I knew I needed to do something. I was bored. I needed something to get me going again. Um, and so clearly, as I sit here now talking about the virtues of the CMP program, I think that I gained a whole lot. Certainly, I learned a lot. I built a great network that I really value the most, and find actually the most surprising is that by earning my CMP, it gave me a whole lot of confidence as well as validation that I do know what I'm doing. I'm good at my craft. And that was really important. And ultimately, it was key to me being able to open my own business. And so I value the whole experience a whole lot. And nobody typed in and told me about why they think they want to earn their CMP. So I'm going to move on. But if the spirit should move you at any point, please feel free to type in that message. Ah, Jacqueline, you're my person. You're doing it. Um, so, Jacqueline, just reading, working for a high-tech company, event marketing. You work in Canada, but your company is global. You want to advance your career and knowledge, and it was recommended by your manager. Well, I think all of those that is great, and I would applaud you. I applaud anybody to improve themselves. So we'll start at the beginning. Uh, the company that owns and manages and administers the CMP program is the Events Industry Council. They've just gone through a new branding, right? They used to be called the Convention Industry Council. So you'll forgive me if I use the wrong name or acronym. It's fairly new to me. So the Events Industry Council is a interesting organization because its members aren't people like you and me, right? Instead, its members are 33 international meeting conventions and exhibition industry member organizations. So it's an association for associations. Kind of strange, right? Um, Basically, the ultimate certification within the industry. And so that's kind of an important thing, and we'll get back to that a little later on. So the Events Industry Council develops programs to promote professionalism within our industry. And as I said, they own and administer the Certified Meeting Professional certification. Now, it does stand for Certified Meeting Professional. A lot of people think the P stands for planner, but about a third of our current CMPs are CMPs globally. So this is an international certification. And that makes things very interesting for us. So, and you'll see why in a little bit. And the only other thing I can tell you is that we began in 1985, so we have a long history, right? Well established certification. So the goals of the CMP program are very straightforward, which is a really good thing, especially with this first bullet point, which I think is the most important for our use. Body of knowledge for us to understand in order to be successful on the CMP exam. And that's a really important issue because the CMP itself has no class associated with it, right? So it's likely in the past when you took an exam, right, it was associated with a course. So you knew that the body of knowledge that was taught in the course would be what the exam would be covering. And there's no such course for the CMP. So if without them identifying a body of knowledge, we would kind of not know how to proceed, right? Um, so that a little later in our session so that you get a good idea of what that's all about. Now, after they looked at the body, or they established the body of knowledge, the next thing they did was they identified an amount of knowledge within that body of knowledge that you needed in order to be considered certified. So they said, this is how much you need to know, right? Now, with that, we all come to this process with weak points and strong points, right? And so we all have to bolster up our weak points, and that stimulates the advancement of the art and science of meeting management because we're learning something new. Aware of those because you're not yet a CMP, but as a CMP, you're invited to CMP only events. And so I spoke earlier about building a network, and that absolutely is true as it relates to my CMP. So again, as we learn more, our value increases, right? And then lastly, as we learn more, we do better, in which we can raise industry standards, practices, and ethics. So really good set of goals for the program, and they actually really do help us a great deal. Now, we've already talked a lot about the benefits of certification, right? We've talked about learning more, right? I mentioned that I started to earn more, and the PCMA annual salary survey that's done just came out, and it says that CMPs earn about $10,500 more than their non-CMP counterparts. So that's annual. So if that isn't incentive, I don't know what is. I mentioned personal achievement and increased knowledge. I haven't so much talked about credibility. And so I'd like you to think about this. And if you care to share with us in the chat window, I invite you to do so. So think about this. When you meet a CMP, perhaps even today as I introduced myself and said I have a CMP, is there something that you know about that person or me because I have a CMP? Right? For me, as I meet somebody new who has their CMP, I know a few things about them. Then they've made a significant investment of time and energy and passion into becoming a CMP. And so that for me, that gives them a certain amount of credibility. Now, I did mention there's an international certification, and it is recognized globally. I can tell you that I have trained people all over the world um, and prepared them for their exam. So proud in Beijing, in Shanghai, in South Korea, um, in the Middle East. I recently taught this information session in India. I've taught folks all over Europe, certainly North and South America. Um, and so there are CMPs everywhere, and this is a globally recognized certification. Other benefits, I like to call this slide the vanity benefits, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, right? But we get to use the CMP designation on letterhead, business cards, your email, etc., right? And you are then also invited to those CMP only programs that I mentioned. And of course, you're listed in you're certified. So now we're at the heart of the process. Again, I want to recommend that you ask questions as they occur to you.
Ellen?
Because now typically, yeah.
Hi,
yes.
my name is Meredith.
Hi, Meredith.
Hi, I can't find the chat window.
Okay, if you do you see do you see the control panel on your screen?
Do not.
Okay, it's like a little black thing. Have you maximized the slides on your screen?
I did, and I'm looking at the bottom, the bar on the bottom.
That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so there's 3-dot window.
I wonder if it's because I had trouble joining with Zoom and I had to call in. That's why I don't have the chat window.
Well, I'm called in too, so oddly enough.
Okay.
So, but Meredith, your microphone's working great, so we can just use that.
Okay, I'll do that
right?
then. All right, thanks, Ellen.
No
that.
worries.
Okay, great.
No anxiety here.
Thank you.
So we're at the heart of the matter, the CMP process. Okay, and it is a 4-step process. We're going to look at each step along the way in depth. So the first step is to apply to the program. Once you apply to the program, you wait about 4 to 6 weeks and you get an answer back from the Convention Industry Council that says by email, and the email will say, congratulations, you're now a CMP candidate, and you now have 1 year in which to take the exam. So from the time that you're accepted into the program, you have 1 year to take the exam. Now the exam is offered 4 times 10-day testing window. So there's opportunity for you to take the exam over 40 days during the year. The testing windows turn out to be January, May, August, and November. So those are the quarterly windows. Your second step is to register for the exam. So that really doesn't doesn't seem sense. I don't know why they call it that, but nonetheless, that's what they say, register for the exam. Really what they say in November, whatever it is, right? You're making that commitment to them. Your next step after that will be to choose a location, date, and time for the exam. So the exam is offered in 400 secure testing facilities globally. It's likely that there will be one fairly close to you, if not in the city that you reside in. You get to choose the location, date, and time for that exam. And then, of course, the last step is to sit for the exam. So we're going to start with the application process, and we'll look at that in depth. So the application itself is so if you're looking for the instructions, I would advise that you read the CMP handbook before you fill out the application. I'm sorry, Jacqueline, I'm seeing it just now that you asked if they offer locations in Canada, and the answer is yes. This is an international exam. It's being offered internationally. So like even my international students can take their exams often very close to where they work or live. This is wrong. The current hand's actually dated 2017. I'm not sure why this says that. I may have clicked the wrong file when I opened, so see if I did or not. So the application is very straightforward. People go around and they start filling it out, and it's very easy, and then they hit like a roadblock, and then they start wondering if they're doing it correct. And if they've read the CMP handbook, they know exactly what they're doing. If they don't, then they start wondering, right? So definitely try and get that CMP handbook and take a read before you fill out your application. Now, the application is filled out online on the Events Industry Council website, which is eventscouncil.org. And so again, I'm going to send you all that information. So essentially what you're doing is you're opening an account that costs nothing. To do your account. So there's no application, registration, or scheduling deadlines. For a period of time, there was a very complicated set of deadlines you need, and those have all been done away with. This whole process much easier for most people. So you can create and submit your application online at any time. You can track all the continuing education activities online, and you can upload supporting documentation directly into your Events Industry Council here. In other words, once you become a candidate, you can submit your exam fee at any time, and you can schedule your exam for any time in any of the available testing windows. So I guess we're just trying to say, don't worry about any deadlines. For the application itself, what we'll be doing is demonstrating that you're eligible through two sections. The first section is professional experience, and the second section is continuing education and internships. So in each of these sections, everyone needs to and a requirement in continuing education and internships. And we're fortunate because the convention, or the Events Industry Council, gives us a number of ways to meet the one requirement. So let's look at section 1 and look at those requirements. So as I said, section 1 is about professional experience. Now most of us fit into the option 1 category, which is 3 years of full-time employment in the meetings industry in the position where you have responsibility. Okay, so now some of us, right, are working toward these things. We may not yet have them, right? Could be working toward them. So don't go, oh, forget it, I don't have it, right? You absolutely belong here if you're working toward these things. Time work experience, right? I'm sorry, 24 months, same thing, in a job of responsibility in our industry, right? But you also have a completed degree in hospitality. And so the third option is one that in all my years of doing this, and it's getting on there, it's like close to 12 years, I've had one person fit into this category, and that's option 3, which is 3 years as a full-time instructor in the meetings industry for an educational institution. So either we fit into option 1 or we're working towards those goals. Asking you, this is the old paper application, but it's the same information. So they're going to ask you for a job title, the name of your organization, and the type of organization that it is, then your employment dates, and then they're going to ask you to convert that to numbers of months. Right now, sometimes we have more than one job, right, to get to the 36 months. So there'll be a button in which you can click on to add more, right? And it will bring up another block just like this. The last item is a job description, and they do want one that's fairly detailed, but the thing that they're really looking for is, do you spend the bulk of your time in meetings, industry-related activities, right? So that's what they're looking for. A lot of people ask me, what is the title? Right? It doesn't really matter about the title. That the job description is saying that you have the kind of responsibilities that they're looking for. So that's not all that difficult to do, right? We probably could all do that right today. The only other thing that you need to do in section 1 is upload a resume or a CV. It can be fairly simple. It doesn't have to be very elaborate. And again, just make sure that what you're claiming on your resume and your application are going to match, right? That would be a red flag for me. And make sure that you're including your current, your current employment or your most recent employment. Sometimes we update our resume, right, if we're currently employed. So make sure that you've got that on there as well. Any questions about section 1? Right, fairly easy. Nothing, nothing too horrible here. So our next section is section 2, and again with internships and continuing education. Now, most of us fit into the option 2 category. And option 2 says that we have 25 clock hours of continuing education in the meetings industry in the past 5 years. Okay, now a lot of people go, well, how am I going to get that? And nobody get discouraged, right? I'm going to show you before we're all done an easy way to accomplish that. Okay, so stick with me. Now, fewer people fit into an option 1 category, which is having an industry internship of at least 200 hours that was administered by an institution of higher education. So, it does, yep.
That is my main advice
option
you're going to
2, is it option 2, Meredith, or 1?
Yep, option 2.
Okay, great. Well, we're going to talk a lot about that, so
Perfect.
not to worry.
Thank you.
So anybody fit into an option 1 category? Because we could skip right over that. And most of the time we can skip right over it. So stick down, or we're going to skip. Right? Nobody needs this, so we don't have to go through it. Okay, but most of us have this or are working toward this. Right, Meredith? It's okay to be working toward it.
Yes, absolutely.
So, right, so here we are. The application, there's a button that you're going to click, right? And you're going to be able to add additional courses. Okay, so let's go through this. I'm going to purposely skip over the line that says CMPIS domain, and we're going to talk about that 2 slides down the road. So bear with me, okay? So let's say we took a class in managing a budget, and let's say we took it at our local community college, okay? So the session course title is going to be Managing a Budget. Right, the program's number of clock hours. Fairly simple, right? Now, good news for you, you're earning an hour with me today. Okay, the education that I provide has been reviewed by the Events Industry Council, and I'm considered a preferred provider of continuing education for the CMP. So by attending today's course, as long as you stay through the end, you're going to earn 1 hour of continuing education that you can use on your application. So for this course, you would put in CMP Information Session, Event Solutions Management is the program sponsor, right? The location, really easy, right? The issue comes down to this next slide, and that is that you need some kind of proof, documentation that you can upload into your application that shows that you actually attended the session you're claiming. Okay, luckily, again, the Events Industry Council is fairly liberal about what they'll take as proof of attendance. So they'll take an invoice, a canceled check, a diploma, or certificate of completion. If you have a course description, an on-site program, a syllabus, course handouts, I'm going to send you an email today that says, thank you for attending. the CMP Information Session on July 5th, 2017 for 1 hour, domain A, strategic planning. You're going to get that from me. And so that will be your proof, and you'll upload that into your application. So remember when I talked about the 33 members of the Events Industry Council? And I said there's an advantage to that. And the advantage is that each one of those 33 organizations recognizes that you need this documentation, and you may not have kept it. They're going to be very helpful in getting you the documentation that you require. So I don't want you to hesitate, especially from the 33 member organizations. They're familiar with your needs, okay? And so you can go back to them and say, can you get me the documentation I'm required? And they will absolutely get that to you. So I did skip over that second line. Remember, it said CMPIS domain. And if you recall, when we were talking about the goals of the CMP program, we talked about the CMP International Standards being a body of knowledge. Standards. So we're going to take a look at the international standards. Again, I'm going to send you a link to it. It's a PDF. It's a 63-page long outline, really, that's created by bringing CEs, both planners and suppliers, from all over the world together, right? And they have one major conversation, and one question is asked, and that question is, what information do you need to know to be successful at your job? So likely you're creating this great big long list in your brain already, right? So you can imagine right, how much information that started or finished. From that conversation, they derive this outline. And we're looking at the first page of the table of contents of the CMP International Standards. There's a second page. This goes on through domain, I don't know, I think. But this is, I think, as far as you need to go truthfully in filling out your application. It's likely that you're taking a course, right? Let's use the examples that we used earlier. So I said a class in managing a budget, right? So if we look down, pull down, you're going to click on it, and all the domains are going to be listed, and you'll click domain B, financial management. It's that easy. Don't make it more complicated for yourself than it is. Now, the class that you're taking with me today falls under domain A, strategic planning. If, as you're filling out your application, you can't figure out where the course is going to fit in, just give me a holler, my phone number, and I'll help you figure that out. So most of the time, this is a really easy thing. Again, this is the second part of the international standards, just so you know, it doesn't end there. It goes on. But it's worthwhile taking a look at what the international standards looks like. So this is the first page of the actual content. It's really the first half a page. And from this half a page, we can see that the outline is broken up into domains, skills, and sub-skills. And that really, aside from defining what information you need to know, right, they're also defining exactly what says 10% of the exam will be this content. And it kind of says that, well, that's 15 questions, right? And it drills down even further for you. So it says that skill 1 will have 3 to 5 questions. So this is not just a description of what you need to know and understand, do, but it's also telling you exactly what's going to be on the exam and how much. This is a very, very helpful document. And again, I'm going to be sending you a link to that, so you'll have that access. So while we're here, it's worthwhile just talking and finishing up. Fully meet the requirements in Section 1 and Section 2 of the application. By all means, fill out that application and get moving. You know, get your CMP. Of us are approaching meeting those requirements. And some of us are approaching and are really excited about being a part of the CMP program. And so they go, let me fill out my application. I'm close. Maybe I'll slip by. Well, I want to share with you that nobody slips by. The Events Industry Council is not that kind of organization. They take this extremely seriously. And so my advice to you is, if you don't legitimately meet the requirement, you do. Okay, so I know that seems simple, but there are a lot of people that go out there and go, I'll get by. And that's just not, it just doesn't happen. Okay, so the next thing that I can say is that if you legitimately meet those requirements and have the backup, you're going to submit your application and you will be accepted into the program. This is not a subjective process. It used to be. It's not a subjective process anymore. The application I sent in was extremely subjective. This is not. Clearly, if you meet the very next moment, right, you hit the submit, very much, we received your application. The very next thing you should do is purchase your study materials, because you need to start studying. Okay. Now, in a few, we're going to talk about what the study materials are and how you go about getting those study materials. But as far as kind of, well, you know, we're talking about the CMP, so let's use project management vocabulary, which is really what we're about to, you know, we're talking about, right? This is a project for yourself. And actually, one of the domains in the international standards is about project management. So let's use some project management would be to purchase your study materials. After that is to join a study group. And in a few slides, we'll talk about why it's a good idea to join this. And this is totally messed up. I totally opened the wrong file or something. So the first study group session for my next August starts August 1st, 2017 at 8 p.m. Eastern. So, and we'll talk about the study group at the very end, so you have an idea about that. But whether it's my study group or another one out there, you'll understand why you need to join a study. So that, I would say, would be the next step on your critical path. Once you've gotten your books and you've joined a study group, right, now's the time to commit to taking your exam during one of those 10-day testing windows that we talked about, right? And that'll be January, May, August, or November, right? Now, at this same point in the process, if you speak English as a second language, you can request an additional 30 minutes of time to take your exam, because the exam is only offered in English, right? And I'll refer you to the CMP handbook about how to go about doing that. Likewise, if you have a disability, including a learning disability, that requires an going that. Okay, so the next step on your critical path would be to make your appointment, right? Choosing your location, date, and time to take your exam. Unfortunately, I have the wrong slide deck up here. When we're all done, I'll show you the dates for 2018. So our remaining dates are now August 4th through 17th and November 3rd through 12th. It's likely that for you guys, the earliest that you would take the exam would be during the November timeframe. But again, there's a January, May, August. It's a very big cycle. Okay, so study material. There are 2 manuals and a glossary. Okay, well, it used to be called the Convention Industry Council Manual. I'm sure they haven't changed that out yet. It's the 9th edition, okay, and it's available both in print and in ebook. I will tell you that if you do a lot of travel, as I did when I was preparing for my CMP, and in fact, even today, I'm not in my office, you will find the ebook being very, very helpful. The second item is glossary. It's called the Accepted Practices Exchange Glossary. Most people call it the APEX glossary. You may hear that because Accepted Practices Exchange is a mouthful. So you do have 2 options here. There's an online version purchased as in print. Frankly, I like the online version. I don't know if there's a reason to have that in print. So then the last item is, again, another manual published by PCMA. It's called Professional Meeting Management, sometimes referred to as the PMM, right? And this will be the 6th edition of that manual. So it is possible to borrow your study materials. And if you do that, make sure you're working from the correct editions. So you want to approach somebody who has recently earned their CMP. Again, it's the 6th edition. Again, I'm going to send you that information. So it is possible to borrow these study materials through social networking. I've heard of people purchasing them on eBay. And so there is absolutely a possibility to do that. Of course, you can purchase them through the Events Industry Council, and I will get you that link because actually it has changed. But I can't stress to you enough working from the right editions. Very, very important. Now the exam itself is 3.5 hours. It's 165 multiple choice questions. There are no fill in the blank or true or false questions. There is no essay. Okay, each of your questions has 4 possible answers in the form of A, B, C, and D. And it's never A and B, C and D, all the above, none of the above. It's always 4 plausible options. Okay, the questions themselves are situational. They're not rote. So what the heck does that mean? Well, it means that what the questions do is they place a meeting professional in a situation that might actually occur in your career. And given that situation, they're asking for the best correct answer. And you'll notice I said best correct answer. That means because there might be more than one correct answer. But given the situation, one of them will be better than the rest, right? And so that's what, there are 400 of them globally, and you will be taking the computer on, you will be taking the exam on a computer. Okay, so each test is comprised of a new selection of questions from the CMP item bank, which is a database of test questions that have been written by CMPs at one of those CMP only events, the CMP Conclave. Okay, so I've been fortunate to attend 7 CMP conclaves, and on 7 different occasions, I have written questions that appear on the exam due process. Well, let's talk about what happens, right? A portion of time is set aside to write questions on the exam. So we're sitting in a ballroom, and we're sitting around banquet tables. And in the middle of the table will be the 3 references that I just talked about. The CIC 9th edition manual, the PMM 6th edition manual, and the Apex glossary. Those will be in the middle of the table. Staff members from the Events Industry Council will be walking around the ballroom, and they'll stop at various tables and they'll say, this table, we want you to write about managing a budget. This table, we would like you to write about food and beverage. This table, we would like you to write about insurance. As I get my subject matter, my hand in the middle of the table, and I grab the closest reference material that's to me. It might be one or the other manuals, right? For the subject matter that they want me to write a question on, and I will write my question based on that. After I write the question, I have to put the source, in other words, what manual, what page I found the information on, and then I can hand it to my neighbor, who then reviews the question. Now, typically, the question is not just signed off on, right? Typically, then ensues a conversation, right? Does the person agree with me with the question? Do they agree with that? The right answer is we'll both sign off on it. Then the question goes to the board of directors, the exam committee, and an independent testing agency for review. So you can see that review is very stringent. Now, the reason why I tell you this is kind of twofold. The first is, as you're preparing for the exam, somebody who you know is going to say to you, oh, you know what, you only need to read from this manual, but not that one. And what I'm going to tell you is that that person is not doing you any favors. Do not listen to them. Because I have personally have written questions out of both manuals, and I'm very familiar with both manuals. In fact, all the different editions of both manuals. And I will tell you that the manuals have different information in it, and if you don't read one, you're cheating yourself, right? And so you must read both manuals. Now, the other reason why I bring this up is because I want you to understand that the questions are sourced from those manuals. They're not sourced from thin air. And so if you're going to be studying, preparing for this exam, you should be studying from the correct materials. So your questions are going to measure both your knowledge as well as process. So we keep the exam current. Now, on that day, you'll get unofficial results. 8 weeks later, you'll receive an email that gives you your official results. So I've talked about the study group a little bit to join one, and here's why. When you take the exam, the Events Industry Council, it's going to be hard to break myself of that. The Events Industry Council takes some demographic information about you. And statistically, throughout the years, they have shown that those who are a part of a study group do better on the exam than those who don't take part in this part of. So for those of you who don't have your 25 hours of continuing education. Here's the news, okay, Meredith? The study group is an Events Industry Council preferred provider of continuing education, right? The CMP study group itself can be your 25 clock hours of continuing education. They're already pre-approved. So here's what people do who have their continuing education. They join the study group, right? Once you're a member of my study group, you have a year to be a member of my study group, just like they give you. That's okay. I want people to take the exam when they feel they're ready. So people join the study group and sit through the first session, right? They sit through, I should say, the first 15 sessions. With that, they earn 30 hours of continuing education that's already been approved by the Events Industry Council. Then they submit their application, okay? And then they can sit through the study group a second time at no additional charge because they're a member for a year, and then they sit for their exam. This is the path that you choose to take. You'll join the study group in August, right? Study with the study group through November. Then you'd submit your application and then study through the group that starts in November and ends in January and take your exam in January. Okay, tried and true, everybody who's done that. And I would say we've had more than 75 people go through just in that way. We've had more than 1,000 people go through the study group. And so the study group itself is tried and true, but that method is like at a 100% success rate. Okay, so the goals of my study group are to study all the content that's in the CMP International Standards. I think understanding how the exam is written is very important. I think that there are hints in the questions, and we talk a great deal about how to find them. And of course, I want everybody to have confidence on the day of the exam. We use 3 online tools. This is definitely the wrong slide deck. I apologize. We don't use any meeting anymore. We're using Zoom right now. And then we're using an online classroom environment that also has a quiz program involved in it. And this is a very sad picture of that environment. But what I will tell you is it has a whole lot of information. Right, a lot of, not in a live study session, but can be asked and answered by each other, not just me. So the study group breaks out into 15 two-hour sessions. Again, first session is August 1st at 8 p.m. Eastern. In each session, we review quiz questions. We just discuss material that you will have read for the week, and we talk about how the exam is assembled. So the group itself kind of breaks down into 12 weeks of content in which you'll have homework assigned at 120 pages to read each week, vocabulary note cards, and you'll take a weekly practice quiz. And then the last 3 sessions are review sessions. In which you'll and your test-taking ability and build test-taking habits and all of that good stuff. So the study group is $350 for the 30 hours of training. As a whole, the study group has a 98% success rate. So if you compare that to the industry, right, the EIC says that industry standard is somewhere between 70 and 75% of the people who take the exam pass it. So we're doing much better than that. Some other advantages to my study group are that I actually live in Tampa, Florida. right? So I teach from all over. Likewise, you can join a class from anywhere on your phone, on your tablet, whatever. Also, if you're not able to make a session, every session is recorded. And so you have the ability, therefore, if you miss something, to go back and catch it, or if you want to review it, right? I just had a student email me today telling me that they spent the holiday weekend listening back to all the sessions done thus far. So you have that ability as well. We're really at the end of the presentation. So if you have questions, now is a great time to ask them. You'll notice that you use that number and call me. A lot of people think, oh, I don't want to bother her by emailing her or by calling her. I'll email her, right? And so I really do prefer you calling me. If you email me, if you email me a question, I'm going to have 5 questions to ask you before I can answer your question, and it'll take 10 days for us to finally get you an answer. If we talk on the phone 5 minutes, then you'll get that answer. So works better for both of us. I did say that before you're done, I hope that we'll have a CMP action plan for yourself. So for those who don't meet a requirement in Section 1, right, all we have to do there is stay employed, right? This time is on our side, right? It goes quickly. If we don't meet the requirement in Section 2 for continuing education, right, we've just talked about joining the study group, right, and how the study group will help you meet that requirement. So for those folks who meet the requirement in Section 1 and in Section 2, what you're going to do is read that CMP handbook, right? Fill that, right? Prepare for your exam and take your exam. How much easier could it be? Hey guys, I'm not making light of it. It's not an easy process, right? And it really does take some real motivation. So that's one of the other advantages of the study group is really, right, we can actually help each other be motivated to do this. So I'm at the end of my presentation. If you guys have questions now, please feel free to ask them. Meredith, go ahead and open your mic if you need to. And if you think of questions later, please get in touch with me. Yeah.
Hi, I do have a couple questions for you.
Sure, go ahead.
Do I need to have all domains on my initial application?
No, in fact, I actually should have pointed that out. In the continuing education section, they could all be in one domain. It just doesn't matter to them.
Okay.
Just make sure that you've put the domain in, and it actually reflects what the class that you took really taught you.
Okay, great. And as far as the hours go, is it the actual clock hour of the actual class? Like if it's from 4:30 to 5:30, that's 1 hour?
That up. So it's just clock hours.
Okay, great. And how long does it take for the application to be approved once you've sent in all your resume and your hours?
I'm gonna say 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
It might happen faster, but that's kind of the official party line.
Okay, great. And what is the passing score for the test?
That's such a good question, Meredith. It's a 20-minute discussion.
Really?
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
It is a 20-minute discussion. question is really, I encourage you to join the speaker, but I'm sure in the CMP handbook there's going to be some information. The type of scoring that they do is called the scale score. And I know that that's probably an unfamiliar term to you, but it is the type of scoring that's done with most prestigious certification exams. So like a CPA exam is done that way. And it is really a very foreign, strange type of scoring, no doubt.
Okay.
So that does take about 20 minutes to discuss. You will see the number 55, but don't get don't think that that's 55. It's none of the things.
Okay.
So that's why it's hard to just actually explain it. It's a long explanation.
No, that's fine. I understand.
I'm not being evasive.
No.
Yeah, no, it's a fairly complicated thing. But the documentation is out there, and you'll probably read it and go, huh? It's kind of like not real clear. And that's why it takes some time to, but it's a good one.
Okay. Well, good. Well, thanks for the answer. I appreciate it.
Okay, my pleasure, Meredith. You bet.
One last question would be, so I'm going to attend the conference, and there's multiple classes at the conference. So do I just go and log the hours I was at each class? Say if it's like 10 different classes?
That's exactly what I would do.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Invoice the total conference.
Right.
Okay.
That's right. Each class, you might also keep the documentation, like the description of each class.
Sure.
And upload that too. Each class, right, will be on a different domain area, likely. But that's the way that you can split that up.
Okay. All right, that's helpful.
Your CMP endeavors, and give me a call if you have any further questions. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Bye.